Hey guys, what is going on? My name is Eric McGrew, of course, and I'm here with you guys for Elevated Office Consulting or Eric's Tree Service, whatever. It's all under Eric's Tree Service LLC. So, I recently had gotten some questions from some people about training to climb and things like that. So, there's all kinds of things that people say to do, and I guess that it depends on how much you think about those tasks as to what kind of realistic level they are beneficial to you. So I thought I'd go over that real quick. For instance, let's talk about rec climbing today, because I know that that's one that a lot of people press really hard and heavy. And I don't disagree with using rec climbing for bettering your own climbing technique. And in fact, I think that you really should rec climb at a lot, or at least, I don't know. I kind of view it as a different term, which is fine. Practice climbing, because rec climbing to me, it indicates that you're going to do what's fun and you're just going to be out there under a recreational situation, which, that's technically true of practice climbing, at least in my case, but I go about it with a little bit different mindset. So a lot of people who rec climb, for instance, just to give an example so that it's clear what I'm talking about, you can go and sign up for a guided tour with a company in town. And, hey, Dan, and you can go climb a tree, right? And you've never been in a tree before. They'll provide you with a saddle. It's rec climbing. I know out east there's a number of companies that are doing this. It's kind of like a guided rock climbing tour, but you're in a tree. The problem with that, in my opinion, is if you have a kind of short-sighted view of a rec climb, like, oh, it's just fun, I'm just going to do whatever, you're not really benefiting a whole lot. It's not that you're not getting any benefit. Anytime you're in the tree and anytime you're, learning how to move in the tree and balance yourself and things a little bit better, is good, right? That's helpful. But if you're really wanting to be efficient at climbing, rec climbing has to be a little bit more, yeah, Dan, we're in Colorado. We're in western Colorado, like halfway between Grand Junction and Telluride-ish area. So you have to really be trying to refine your skill. Now, one of the main differences between just a rec climb, right, and a practice climb in my mind is that a rec climb, I'm just going to climb around and do what I want to do, if that makes sense. I'm going to kind of go out as far as I want to go. Oh, that's a cool branch. Let me get up on there and let me do this and that and the other. And that's fine, but the problem can be that you may not really be pushing yourself in the aspects of what it takes to actually professionally production climb. And that's why I really I've never been a huge rec climber guy. If I know somebody's in town or if there's a climber I've always wanted to climb with that I have the opportunity to, yeah, we go out and we get up in the tree and we talk about techniques and we play around and swing from here to there, and that's all fine, right? But once again, that's where I'm saying the distinction is I practice climb from a rec climb, because a practice climb, even if I'm not pruning a tree, I'm climbing it as if I would prune that tree. And that helps me do a number of things. One, it's going to help me make sure that I'm focusing on the absolute most difficult task in the tree. Most of us, it's not going to be super challenging to get up in the tree. Most of us, it's not going to be super challenging to get 3 to 5 feet away from the trunk in any direction in the tree. But if you have a 60-foot canopy tree and you're trying to get 30 foot out to the very, very tips to use hand pruners or a handsaw, that's a challenge, especially if it's like a maple or a willow that can be pretty brittle. Then you have to start doing redirects or using your lanyards in different ways. And so if you're doing practice climbs, right, not just rec climbs, but actual practice climbs, then one, it's going to help you get those muscle memories down, get your balance down, and feel more comfortable out on the tips. And in a practice climb, that's the place to get that, not out on the job. I mean, there's going to be some level of nervousness and whatever out on the job. You're going to have to do the same thing, and that's fine, because it is still kind of a practice. But Dan says working the rigging out for your guys. Yeah. For sure. This is what practice climbs are for, right? And it's like, you got to get out there. You got to make sure you've got the motions down. You've got to figure out like the safest way. And when you're practice climbing, you're not under that gun of money and time. So you can go slow, kind of figure out where the brittle areas are, how far out you feel comfortable going. Is this kind of a tree for your body weight, your size, your skill level, something you can actually get out to the tips on and prune? Or is that the kind of tree that you want to make sure you have your pole saw with you because you don't feel comfortable getting out there at your experience level yet? So that's one aspect that comes from practice climbing. The second aspect that I found that's been super important for my efficiencies is setting up my gear. When I'm in the tree and I'm trying to get work done, my gear's not set up right. Maybe I'm trying to use a new device. Maybe I'm a new climber, because I remember being a new climber and how much of a struggle certain things were. And it wasn't until years later that I adjusted, like my equipment setup. I was trying to follow like the cookie cutter pattern that somebody else told me worked for them. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But I found it didn't work for me, right? So it took me a couple of years to like really get my own system down on my harness and make my saddle fit my needs. And then, also like I had to do a lot of trial and error and practice. I put stuff on my saddle. I thought this is going to be the best thing ever. Put it on, and then I was like, that's just cumbersome and difficult. So I got rid of it. But other things, they were good and I could tell the potential, but I had to practice using them to make them efficient. So, like the 2 lanyard system, I get a lot of comments about my 2 lanyards, and some people love the idea. Some people hate it. And I get a comment all the time, so many ropes in the tree. You've got 2 long dangling ropes. Don't they get wrapped up in your rigging and this and that and the other? And to be fair, they do sometimes, and you learn how to manage with that. But what I found is that I had to learn how to manage the negative side of it, the cons of having 2 long lanyards. But I also had to understand the pros of having the 2 long lanyards and how they made me more efficiently. Even more so, though, I had to retrain my brain to work with the 2 lanyards, because I had been only climbing with 1 lanyard, and it wasn't a long lanyard. It was like 10 foot long. And so I actually had to train myself how to rely and think about where I could use my lanyard more efficiently, because it's a long lanyard and then I have a second one and this and that and the other. And it took a while because your brain had to get in that mode of doing that. I don't know if any of you have ever like run a piece of equipment and then you get out of the piece of equipment, you get in your car and you try to do, you try to like start your car the way you would start the piece of equipment. You reach for a key in a specific spot on the dash where it would like essentially be in the piece of equipment, and it's not there. Why? Because you have your muscle memory in your brain saying, okay, start, this is where start is. It's not really thinking about the fact you're in your car versus the equipment now, because you were in the equipment all day. So what I'm saying is sometimes you have to build that muscle memory in, and that takes working with new pieces of equipment to make sure it works for you the way that it it works. So sorry about that, Dan. Yeah, everyone definitely is different, and I'm not trying to tell you to climb with a specific tool or not. What I'm saying is you got to figure out what works for you to be the most efficient. I get guys that come and they want to climb for me and they want to climb with me, and they stand on the ground a little bit and they look around and they're like, oh man, yeah, that's easy. I'm a rock climber, or I've never climbed, but I'm physically fit and I can do that. And then they get up there and they try it, and then they're like exhausted and they're, frustrated, and they're throw in their carabiners and whatever because they can't get something to work, and they get on the ground. They're like, man, you made it look so easy. And it's just practice, right? It's just practice. And they're like, you're a big guy. How did you get way out there? And it's knowing what to trust and practice. And that's where I really think that rec climbs can do that for you. But more importantly than just a rec climb, I really recommend that you go and actually like practice climb. I'll even take my handsaw up there with me. I always take my handsaw when I'm practice climbing because you never know if you're going to break a branch up there that you need to remove while you're practice climbing, and you never know if you're going to get your rope tangled or something in a way that you need to cut it out. So definitely start practice climbing if you're not, because if you really want to be efficient, the mindset, well, my employer's paying me to climb and he's going to pay me to practice. You'll never be a great climber, and you'll never be a really well-respected climber for 90% of the people out there. There are some guys that, they'll be fine. That's just how it is. There's always people with quote-unquote natural talent. But, most of us aren't that way. And if you want to be a really good climber and really efficient at what you do, you're going to have to learn how to practice your trade. I mean, practicing your craft is what makes you a master at that craft. I'm not even a master yet. I'm working on it. But, you've got to figure out things. Just another really short story about what happened to me and why practice climbing was so important. From years of just abuse of my body, my right shoulder started giving me a lot of problems after I was climbing like regularly. Like if I have to climb every day, my shoulder it kills me. And my doctor basically said it's just it is just wear and tear on my body. My shoulder is overused. It's been overused for years. All the different things falling on it from skateboarding and BMX bike riding. Mountain biking wears out your shoulders quite a bit just from the pump in them, and then dirt bike riding, of course. And I've done heavy physical work most of my life, all that kind of stuff. So I found that one of my techniques I was using that I loved, which is a 3-to-1, and I still love it and I still use it all the time, on my rope to pull myself up, was wearing my shoulder out because of the weight I was having to pull and the frequency, the motion. So I had to figure out other ways to do it that were close to as efficient or even the same efficiency, but in a different manner. And that's where practice climbing came into play. What it did was it kept me efficient, but it also relieved that excess wear on my shoulders. And now I can still climb, and it doesn't hurt me as bad. Like I get out of there for a full day, it will hurt me. It's just how it is. But without that practice climbing, I would not have been able to be efficient when I was injured. And that's what you have to do. You just have to do that. The great thing about practice climbing is, like I said, you're not on a timetable. It's not like, man, I got to climb this whole tree today. All you have to do is work on a small section. Like maybe your problem is, and I know one of my guys is having this problem right now, throwing his lanyard and carabiner around certain things because he's getting trained. His depth perception is just slightly not there, and hanging from a rope and trying to throw that lanyard, you guys all know if you've been climbing for a while. So sometimes I would just like literally stop and find an area where I saw there was like 5 good areas to throw my lanyard into, and I would just practice that over and over again. Just stand there and try to hit different locations with my carabiner or my clip with my lanyard and get it through the crotch or the union and figure out how to pull it down and whatever, and get me into better positionings. And I did notice a difference. On my BMX channel, which I haven't done recently, I do this thing called the 100 BMX Challenge. And the concept is I do the same thing 100 times, and I film the first time, the middle, and then what's that called? Time lapse of like the last 25. And just being able to see the progress I made in 100 tries between the first one, how puny and awful it was, to the 100th try and how much more efficient I am at it has really like been eye-opening, because how hard is it to throw your lanyard over a branch 100 times? You'd be surprised how many times you do that in a day of climbing. It's not that hard to do. So if you just got in a tree, and you don't have to be high in the tree, but if you just got in a tree and did simple things like trying to throw your lanyard over different unions 100 times, like trying to throw over your head above you and get it through a union, or off to the side a little bit, or across your body. You know, those are some of the hardest, when you have to throw it across your body. All that kind of stuff. That's the best, right? Sorry, Dan was commenting, which I really appreciate, Dan. Don't stop. But he says you'll never master climbing, which I totally agree with. All we can do is strive to try to master it. His right shoulder is jacked up too. Yeah, I'm sorry, dude. It's not fun to have that. Training people is so important. Cookout with canopy time. Yeah, you know, that's, once again, redefining that recreational climbing. Yeah, have fun. Like, if you're training people in the tree, it shouldn't all be business either, especially if it's like after hours work, right? Because if that's the case, they're not going to want to be there. They're just going to be like, well, you know, I do think most companies should schedule multiple training days in the year where you pay your employees and just don't do the work that day of like whatever the work your company has on the books, but you just practice certain techniques and make it fun. Like, have some serious aspects of it. Like, yeah, you gotta, like, you need to progress, do this, and help them try to do that. But also just have fun and like set up a swing in a big branch and just swing, or a simple speed climb to see who can climb the fastest through the branches without using their rope with it on, but, you know, just self-tending and climbing up, especially if it's like an evergreen or a spruce or something like that. Those are just fun things to do. And then Dan says, no stress. I totally agree with that. And then no work. Yeah, if you're going to be practice climbing with the crew, try not to be making it work, but make it where they'll enjoy learning and feel like you're dedicated to them being a better climber. Deep Sea Diabetes says, rec climbing is how you get better and is a way to become more passionate about arb and tree climbing. So once again, I agree. I do. The whole point of this, you know, video is about, not just like lackadaisical rec climbing, but like actually having a focus on practice. And not every rec climb. That's, once again, I made that mention earlier. I don't want anybody to think that I feel like you should just get rid of rec climbing and it shouldn't be fun anymore. That's not the point. The point is there should be rec climbing that's just kind of fun and hanging with friends, in my opinion. And you're always going to learn something from that if you have good climbers with you, or even training people teaches you. Like, somebody will be like, man, I'm really having a hard time getting this. And I'm like, well, you just do. And then it clicks on me. I'm like, oh, I'm missing a step. You have to do this with it too. And then, you know, I start thinking about that. I start thinking about how I'm like, I can't believe I didn't realize this motion was required to do that. And when I realize that, then all of a sudden I become more aware of it. And then with that awareness, I go out there and I'm like, well, if I change this a little bit, then I get this result. And then I'm like, that's awesome. I've just figured out a new technique or tip to work. But practice climbing for me is honestly a lot of times just me and one other person, or just me, and I'm just practicing techniques. You know what I mean? Like, I'm getting my saddle dialed in. I'm like, not just for play, because once again, playing around and just fun rec climbing, you're not pushing yourself to get to the same places as a general rule as you are work climbing. So for me, a practice climb is like imagining I've got to prune this tree, and how do I get to all these points? And I'm trying to hit every point in that tree, for instance, is one of my practice climbs that I would try to get to if I was pruning the tree. Or I'm trying to set up more efficient redirects. Dan says, Deep Sea says agreed. Dan says building confidence is what I'm sure he meant to say. With no stress is way more easy to make good memories. Yeah, I agree. You can hold it way better. Yeah, you tend, when you're not under stress, you tend to retain what you've learned much more efficiently. Plus, when you're not under these stressful situations, you can ask the additional questions because, like, I know a lot of guys, you tell them what to do, they listen, they do it, and that's fine. I know other guys that have to understand the process. Why do you do that? How does this work if you do this? And why is it better than another way? And then sometimes I'm there and they're like, well, why can't you do? And I'm like, maybe you can. So I have them try that and they find that that's a more natural motion or action for them. And when that occurs, I'm like, hey, that worked way faster for them than it did for me. Let me try it their way. And then I learn a new technique. And I'm like, oh, okay. But now I have to go back to the tree and practice climbing, trying that new technique. Because even though I felt more comfortable with it or whatever, I don't know about that, Dan. Don't give me too much credit, man. And so Dan said, you're the man, Eric. But I don't really. Yeah. That's thank you, Dan, but don't give me too much credit, man. And so like now I have to like learn to be the most efficient, because remember, we're not looking, if you're going to be a serious climber and you're going to save your body, you're going to make money, you're going to be productive, and you're going to be safe, we're not talking about being capable of doing something. We're talking about being a highly trained and efficient machine at what you do, so that the least amount of risk, the least amount of fatigue, the least amount of exertion, the least amount of time spent is used to get to that level. Does that make sense? That's the point. I know guys, the guy that's kind of training with me right now, I could throw him in a tree and he could climb the tree and get to, like, let's say 70% of the places that I would get to. But it also takes him 3 times the time. Like, it takes him 3 times as long to get to those difficult places up in the top canopy at an angle. So, and that's another thing, like, people think, oh, well, I got to 80 foot in this tree. That's awesome. You got almost to the top. Great. But can you get to 60 foot in the tree, but off to the right-hand side or the left-hand side at a 35-degree angle above your tie-in point? That's where it gets more challenging. Those are the difficult climbs. The straight up and down, or if you're at the very bottom and you have a big pendulum and you go out to almost the tip of the canopy, awesome, good for you. I'm not berating what you've done. That's huge improvements. A lot of people couldn't do that. That's great. But if you want to be a professional climber and be efficient, we're talking you got to get to the tip top on the right-hand corner of that canopy in small diameter wood and make cuts. And there's a good chance that your tie-in point will be lateral to you or below you. How quickly and efficiently and safely can you do that, right? That's a whole different beast. Yep, that's it. Everywhere and back, there to negotiate rig it. Yep. So that's why I say practice climb versus just simply rec climb. And once again, I'm not trying to discourage anybody from rec climbing. I don't know that I'll have my equipment with me, so I probably won't rec climb at TCIA, but I might have some kit there. I don't know yet. I'll have to see. But when you have those opportunities to hang out with people, talking is great. You can get concepts and everything, but doing it is where it's key. Don't forget that at TCIA, I will be at Gap Arborist booth. I'll be there all 4 days. I will also be at the RBI booth Friday, maybe it was, or Saturday 1 to 2. And then I know that Zach Richards, zigzagman.zr, Levi Woodall, who's Trevi, Patrick Fitch, and a few others will be stopping by and hanging out in the Gap Arborist booth from time to time. They're all sponsored climbers. of Gap Arborist Supply. So they're my teammates, and we'll be all there. We'll be chatting and whatever, and representing our sponsor. Sorry, Dan. Yeah, I know it's a long haul from Australia to get here, but aren't you in Australia? I can't remember. Maybe I'm wrong, but I thought you were. And yeah, so if you want to stop by, please do. Oh yeah, Tim with Arb Dogs. Nice. Yeah, I know Tim a little bit. I'm not going to say I know him, but I do know Tim a little bit. We've spoken a few times and things like that. Nice guy. And you can stop by and we'll talk. And if you want to have a little session once a day at the end of the day, I'm going to try to put together a 30 to 45 minute little round table group where you can sit in. I'm going to limit to about 10 of us. We can sit down, we can chat about, tree stuff and any questions you might have or any tips you want to give to the group that might help people be better climbers and whatnot. I will be the mediator for that, and then we can all learn and enjoy some time, and there's no charge for that, but it is going to be limited to about 10 people. So just come on by and let me know if you're interested in being in that, and then we'll go from there. And I hope you guys all had a good evening. Thanks for stopping by and checking out this live. I'll be doing more of them. I'm trying to get back into it a little bit more. I am back managing a lot of the marketing stuff for Gap Arborist Supply. Been super, super thankful for, high five, bro. Super thankful for Ray with Gap for all the opportunities he's given me and the work, of course, he gives me as well. And then I'm still doing consulting and stuff with Weaver, so keep an eye out for that. If you haven't gone and checked them out, go check out Weaver's new suspenders. They have there's two forms of suspenders. They are not elastic, so don't misunderstand. These are like weight-bearing suspenders. They have a cool mesh padding in the shoulders and in the shoulder straps, and they also, you can get one pair with no water bladder at all, or you can get the other pair that has the camel pack. It's not a camel pack, but the water bladder on the back, and it's removable. So go check that out. We worked on those quite a bit, and then of course they've got a new throw line bucket that's nestable, so there's bags inside it that you can put your throw line in and carry multiples with you. Great little deal. Go check those out online. I think you guys will enjoy those, and they're totally worth the money in my opinion. But that's just for me. Hope you guys can go check those out and find something that you need. Appreciate everybody that's been here. Ed Treehead, sorry man, I'm leaving, but thanks for stopping by for a few moments. This will be up on my Instagram, so you guys can watch it later. Please feel free to share it with others, and if you don't mind, hit that like button, and if you want to comment, leave me a comment. It'd really help. I'm trying to get to 5,000 followers here in the near future, and if we do that, I'll do a giveaway. So if you could help me get the word out that I'm trying to get there and that my content's worth listening to and viewing, if you feel it is, then please share it. So you guys all be safe out there. Please have a good night, and we'll talk to you later. Bye.